Abrams changes. So on Abrams, they changed the melee attack rate. So when you're using melee, your attack rate is lowered by 15%, which is going to be quite a big deal because a lot of Abrams damage comes from melee attacks, especially lower ratings. Another Abrams change they did is now the fall-off damage with your gun is going to be at 20 meters instead of 22 meters. So if you're shooting at this range, you do full damage. If you're shooting a little bit further away, you're going to do a little bit less damage. This is going to be having a massive impact. I think every time they change anything with ranges, it's going to be a big deal and people are going to notice a lot in game. Bebop changes. So on Bebop, they have changed the bullet growth rate. So basically when you're shooting, you do a little bit more damage as you level up. It's not going to have a massive impact, but it is obviously going to scale with weapon damage, so it is going to be quite a big deal. It's going to be 0.04. It'll matter a little bit. Now also, each time he levels up and gets a boon, he's not going to have 1% bullet resist naturally anymore. He's instead going to be getting 1% spirit resist. Sticky Bomb now loses 20% of your stacks on death. So whenever you're using Sticky Bomb, you skill it up and it gets stronger every time you put it on people. You're going to lose 20% of your stacks every time you die, which is going to have a massive impact if you have a lot of stacks. So it's very important you don't die in Bebop. The hook is also going to return troopers 75% faster than normal, so when you're hooking troopers, it's going to instantly use fly through basically. Now we have Great Talon. Great Talon got some really good buffs this patch. His base health regen went from 2 to 2.5. Anytime you change healing, native healing, it's going to be a massive impact. So he is going to be a lot stronger in lane. It's going to be harder to dominate him. His gun spirit scaling also increased from 0.1 to 0.13, which again is going to give him a lot more damage. This is going to be huge overall for him. Now his movement speed also scales with spirit power again. So going spirit is going to give you gun damage and it's going to give you movement speed. And then his strafe speed with stamina also increased. So when you're up in the air, the rain of arrows, you can jump the strafe, and it's a lot stronger now. Infernus got a small nerf, so basically when you're shooting an enemy, you apply your burn. You're reducing enemies' damage by 20 or by 30% before. Now it's going to be by 25% spirit damage. So it basically just means it's going to reduce the damage by a tiny bit less, but it honestly doesn't matter. There's not enough to nerf him, and you won't feel a difference in game. Ivy got a small buff. So on Ivy, your base bullet damage is increased from 4.5 to 5. So basically your base bullet damage over here is going to be a little bit stronger. You're going to be a lot stronger in the early game. However, they also nerf your base bullet damage growth by 0.03, which basically evens out at 0.54 at max level. So late game you're going to be the same. Early game you're going to be a little bit stronger, which is going to have a nice impact. Laning with Ivy should be a lot nicer now. Now Ivy also got hit by a little nerf. Basically when you're using your ultimate, it's going to be slowing them by 30% instead of 35% when you're throwing down the bomb on somebody. So if you throw it down on a person instead of minions, it's going to slow them by 30% instead of 35%. Now on Kelvin, they also nerfed your thing. So your Arctic Beam is going to be slowing the enemies by 40% instead of 50%. This is going to be a massive difference. A slow at 40% to 50% is actually very impactful. And it's going to matter a lot. You're going to feel this. Then another thing, the grenade, when you're using it, the healing is going to be less now. So it's going to go from 145 to 125 instead. And then another small thing they did is they fixed frozen shells not freezing weakened prey twin. So if you use this on the enemy base, it's now going to freeze the prey twin again. Lady Geist is one of the slowest characters in the game that people love a lot. So this character was really overpowered earlier because her Malice was super strong. Now they did nerf Malice quite a lot. So Malice slow reduced from 20% to 15%, so you're not going to slow people as much. Now they also reduced the debuff duration from 13 seconds to 9 seconds, which is going to be massive because the damage amplification stacks up to 5 times. And it's going to be harder to stack it if it's only 9 seconds instead of 13. It's a really big deal. They also reduced the damage amplification from 15 to 8%. Now if you do level it up, you get 7% damage amp, so it's going to be the same as before. But you do need 2 levels in Malice before it's the same as before. So these things are just going to be a big difference. It's going to nerf a lot, and it's going to feel a lot nicer when you're playing against a Lady Geist. And now we're getting to McGinnis, my most hated character. I don't like this character very much. However, they buffed the gun spin decay rate. So basically when you're shooting, you see how you can shoot. It takes a little bit of time to wind up. Now you can shoot a lot easier and you can start winding up faster so you can get your bullets going. It's quite nice. I think it's probably a good change because it's just going to feel nicer to play the character. And maybe it's going to be stronger, but they can just balance around that. Now other things they also did, they took the mini turret's cooldown reduced from 24 seconds to 18 seconds. So the mini turrets are going to be a lot stronger now. Way less cooldown, you can spam it a lot more. The mini turret also had its spirit resist increased from 60% to 80%. So spirit damage is not going to do anything to these turrets anymore. It's going to be very hard to kill them with AoE or spirit damage. However, you can just shoot them with a gun and it's still going to die. Now, if you're hitting people with your wall, you're going to slow people. Before it was slowing by 25%, now it only slows by 20%. However, another thing that also did, before you had a damage amplification by 25% on your wall. Now it's only going to be 15%. This is going to be a massive difference because it was very easy to hit a lot of people with the wall, and you're going to do a lot more damage. 10% amp is crazy in this game. Essentially, all amplification damage is nuts. Soul Shredder, you have escalating exposure. All of these amplification things are extremely strong because it's exponential damage as you get stronger in the game, whereas everything else is just static. Now to her ultimate, they also nerfed the ultimate a lot, so the minimum range is now going to be 7 meters instead of 6 meters. This is going to matter because, I mean, people can just walk up close to you and actually just burst you down doing this. You can't do anything to them, you can't hit them. And being 7 meters instead of 6 meters is going to matter a lot, obviously, because it's a lot easier to play against it. Another thing that did is the cooldown was increased by 34 seconds, so it's 140 seconds now instead of being 106 seconds. Now obviously it's reduced by 50 seconds because I leveled up twice. Now another thing they did, so they've been nerfing all slows in the game so far, it seems, movement speed slows. The ultimate slows by 30% instead of 35% as well. Alright, now we're getting to my favorite character. So what they did to this character, I don't approve of it, I think it's a mistake. So first we're going with 5 scabs. 5 scabs, if you max it up, gives you plus 80 max health steal now. You can use it 4 times, so it's essentially plus 40 instead of plus 70. This is going to be a big deal. It's plus 10 each time you hit somebody, and I think they overbuffed the hero. Now the other thing they did with the character is to buff the gen mark, and I think this is a bit too much maybe, but we'll see. So the gen mark is now 1.75 seconds instead of 2 seconds to apply. So every time you shoot somebody, it's going to take 1.75 seconds, and then you can shoot again and apply it again. Before it's 2 seconds. It doesn't say it accurately, it says 1.8 seconds, but it should be 1.75. Now they also changed the ultimate quite significantly. I don't think this matters too much because you skill it last, but they did change it, and maybe it's gonna matter in some cases. So the first thing they changed is change the cooldown when you level up 2 times. It's now 40 seconds instead of 30 seconds. It doesn't matter much, you have a little bit more cooldown, but you're not spamming it anyways. The other thing they did is they increased the fire rate from 20% to 30%. However, if you maxed it out, you were also getting 30% fire rate before. Now you don't get that anymore. Instead, you're going to get unstoppable for 3 seconds. Overall, I don't think the ultimate was necessarily buffed, but I do think the change could be nice. I mean, the ultimate is a team fight and you can't get stunned anymore. Maybe that's actually going to save your ass, or it's going to win your team fight. Mo and Krill time. So they did 2 things with Mo and Krill. Mo and Krill has 2 heads. However, if you shoot Mo and Krill in the head, he has a 20% headshots crit damage reduction, so you don't take as much damage if you're playing Mo and Krill. The other thing they did is if you use Borrow and you spin out the Borrow, you're now going to keep your resistances. You can see on the left over here, you kept them while you're spinning. Normally, before the second you get out of Borrow, you would lose your resistances. Paradox. So they changed a little few things mechanically how it works with Paradox. So the first thing is your pulse grenade. Before, it used to count as how many pulses does it give, right? It goes boom, 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 boom. Now instead it's going to count by duration, so it's going to stack with the duration extender if you want to use that item. And also when you level up your grenade now, instead of having 1 more pulse, it gives you 0.8 seconds duration. Now they also did a lot of nice things for kinetic carbine, so if you're shooting through boxes, you can actually just break all of them. It goes through every single box and it can hit somebody at the end there, which is going to be super nice. The other thing that also did with kinetic carbine is if you're playing against a Haste, Mirage or something like that, they have evasion in their kits. For example, Mirage uses Tornado, it gets evasion. You can shoot through the evasion and it cannot be dodged. The Carbine also does 15% more damage in headshots now compared to before, so it's actually important to also aim. Now one of our other loved characters, 7, sadly he got nerfed. The cooldown on your lightning ball. 23 seconds to 26 seconds is going to be a big deal. The other thing they did is they nerfed the radius. So when you go down here, you want to do a camp and you put down your lightning ball, it is going to be pathetically small. You can't hit all the minions anymore. It's just going to be feeling really, really bad. Now, if you do max it out, you do get +1 range. So overall, it's still a buff from like 3 patches ago once you have it maxed out, but it's going to be very small and it's going to feel really bad early game. Now, the other thing they did, just along with everything else, the movement slow when you level it up to 2nd time is going to go from 40% to 35% instead. They basically just nerfed all movement slow in the game. The other thing they did is reduce your movement speed naturally. So you're having 7.3 before, now you're going to have 7.1. And then the last thing they did is the ultimate is slightly buffed. It goes out faster and it's going to have longer range overall. It goes from 25 to 30 meter range. So that's going to be quite a big deal from something like that to all the way over there, right? That's going to be a big deal. The ultimate is a lot stronger now. Now we get to one of the most overpowered heroes in the game. Luckily he got nerfed. So let's get into it. The first thing is his movement speed is now 7 meters per second. It used to be 7.3. That's a big nerf. It's gonna matter a lot. The other thing is knives are now harder to hit. The collision radius was reduced by 20%, so it's a lot harder to hit your knives. Now we get to bloodletting. They changed this ability a lot. So it used to have 21 second cooldown. Now it has 50 second cooldown. However, if you level up twice, it gives minus 25 second cooldown instead of minus 4.75. So basically it's going to be a 10-second difference roughly if you level it up twice. Now the other thing they also did, they increased the duration from your bloodletting from 10 seconds to 13 seconds, which is good. However, the damage deterred is now 22% instead of 30%, but if you level it up once, it's going to be 30% again. Overall, it's a pretty decent nerf to bloodletting. It's going to matter a lot, and you should be able to feel this in game. Now they also nerfed your ultimate quite a lot. So before it had a 20 meters, you can fire it from super far away. Now you actually have to be very close. It's only 13 meters. That's an enormous nerf. The other thing they also did is your build up in rage when you melee, heavy melee, is going to be 2.75 instead of 3. So that's a big nerf as well. Then your duration on your rage is going to go from 10 seconds to 9 seconds, which you shouldn't be feeling that much. And then the other thing is your rage build up versus creeps is reduced by 50%. So it's going to be a lot harder to get rage. However, he's still going to feel kind of nice because you don't lose your rage as fast as you did in the past. But these nerfs are going to be very significant and you're going to feel it. Now we're getting to the Flying Devils. So the first thing is gun cycle time improved from 0.26 seconds to 0.22. It should basically just be attack speed, you shoot faster. It's a massive buff. The next thing is your bullet damage growth is increased from 0.55 to 0.65. So basically whenever you level up, you get your boons down here. The boons, when you get those, you get more damage. It's going to be a massive difference. Vindicta is going to feel super nice. Now your fire rate also scales 0.14 with a spirit power. You buy some spirit item, bam, you have more attack speed. This is going to be a big deal as well. And Vindicta got buffed massively. Now as well, when you assassinate people, you don't share the souls with your teammates anymore. They made a patch a few times ago where if you kill somebody, bam, they die. You share it with your teammates, that doesn't happen anymore. The other thing that also changed is your flight. It's now 12 seconds base instead of being 8 seconds. Now if you do level up 2 times, it's going to be plus 8 seconds as well instead of plus 6 seconds. So basically, Vindicta, you can just fly in the air for a long time now. It's going to feel really nice. You can just sit up here. This is your new spot. You're going to be flying all the time. Now the other thing they did, which is going to feel very nice, is if you ultimate, your bullets are now bigger. Your bullet radius increased from 3 to 4. So basically, you don't have to hit your targets as nicely as you did before. It's going to be bigger bullets. It's going to be easier to hit. Everyone's beloved Gooman. So Viscous had a small nerf. Your bullet damage reduced from 12 to 11. That's a 10% nerf almost. That's huge. However, your bullets damage scaling is now increased from 0.86 to 0.9. So basically, it's going to be almost the same at max level. You're going to be a little bit weaker at max level. However, at level 1, you're going to be a lot weaker. It's going to be a massive difference. Now they also nerfed the cubes. So if you level up twice, you now get plus 35 health regen. However, if you level up 3 times, you get the same tier as you had tier 2 before, where it removes all debuffs. And then you get minus 21 seconds ability cooldown. Another thing they also did is they reduced your damage. When you level up your splatter twice, it gives plus 50 damage instead of plus 60. And the last thing they did is your goo ball spirit resist reduced from plus 70% to plus 60%. Now you have the same resist on spirit and bullet. However, this doesn't sound like much. It's 10% less resist. It's not a big deal, right? But when you have resistances, it scales exponentially. So when you go from 60 to 70%, that's like 22% more resistances from base. So it's a big deal. It's going to make you way less tanky and you're going to feel this tremendously. An easy example for this is if you have 1,000 health and use your goo ball, then the 60% damage reduction, you're going to have 2,500 effective health against spirit damage. Whereas before, you would have 3,333 effective health. So it's going to matter a lot. You can see how the numbers are a big difference. Everybody's spirit policeman. So one got nerfed quite heavily as well. The nerf slows on everything. So basically when you're throwing your flask out, it used to slow people for 6 seconds. Now it only slows people for 3 seconds. The other thing is A chemical flask weapon damage duration increased from 6 seconds to 7 seconds, so you're going to have a little bit more damage. It's not going to be a big difference. Like, sure, it matters a little bit, but you're not going to feel this too much. Then your binding word escape time reduced from 2.9 to 2.8 seconds. This doesn't really matter that much either. And your range is from 18.5 to 19 meters. Again, this is not going to matter too much. It's just a little bit less range. You won't feel this much. Now, the big thing on Warden, however, is his ultimate tier 3. On tier 3, you now get unstoppable when you're casting it, so you can't get stopped. They can't do anything to you. If you cast your ultimate, you're always going to get it through. A lot of ones struggle with the ultimates because you see a one cast it, you just walk up to him, stun him, do something to him, and he's completely useless and you just kill him. You can't do that anymore. He's actually going to have a massive impact in teamfights. He's going to be a lot stronger now. Our favorite caster, assassin, CC bot, and tank, Wraith. So the card trick base damage has been reduced from 80 to 70. That's huge. Normally it used to be a caster assassin who just does infinite damage to cards. Can't do as much anymore. And the next thing is that card trick cooldown increased from 0.5 seconds to 0.65. So you can't just spam them out like crazy anymore. It's going to be a little bit more difficult. Your telekinesis cooldown increased from 95 to 100 seconds. This doesn't really matter. Nobody cares. It's a little bit longer. Nobody really cares. Who cares? The other thing is your telekinesis tier 1 cooldown improved from 0.28 seconds to 30 seconds. So if you level up once, it's a little bit nerfed, but it's not really a big deal. Nobody cares about that. Yamato had some bug fixes, but the main thing is his shadow transformation. Tier 1 changed to plus 20% fire rate, so he has a little bit more fire rate now. And then his cooldown is reduced from 106 seconds to 90 seconds, so it's a little bit faster. Overall, not too many changes for Yamato.